NSW, what's the worst thing you have witnessed on a bachelorette party? Bride to be blowing a male stripper while everyone in her party were cheering her on, including her future mother-in-law. Louder cheers when he blew his load in her mouth. It's the future mother-in-law that made it super WTF. The groom's best friend, 24 years old, died a horrific death in a house fire weeks before the wedding. We were all crushed. How could the wedding proceed without Richie? He was supposed to be the best man. So we gathered at a friend's house where we made sausages and desserts for the wedding, and then retreated to a cabin in the woods on the property. About 15 of us spent hours drinking beer, smoking weed, and alternately crying and laughing about Richie. It was like his unofficial wake. I know this all sounds so sad, and it was, but it was necessary. I think we all attended the wedding with a lot of weight lifted from our shoulders after spending the night before celebrating the missing guest. It was a hard night, and I still respect the groom for making his bachelor party about the one person who couldn't attend. Not really on par with worst things like I've read in the comments thus far, but was still pretty funny in retrospect. Our group arrived in Vegas for some pre-scheduled debauchery and drinking at a strip club. The groom's best man decides to get a dance in the champagne room. He comes back and we head out to gamble and drink some more before retiring to the hotel room. Next morning, while recovering from our collective hangovers, the best man's right eye was as red and puffy like a souffle. He told us the stripper used his face as washboard during his time with her. The doctor told him he had gotten crabs in his eyebrow somehow and they made their way down to his eye. Needless to say, he didn't play the part of best man. We still haven't allowed him to live that down. Made their way down to his eye. No. Late to party, but this was insane. Groom had bachelor party in the back of a bar, private room, big room, like 50 dudes there, including his father. Parents were married. Everyone is drinking heavily. 5 strippers come in. They're basically walking around with cans of whipped cream and you pay money to lick it off of their body. Most of the guys are paying $10 and get to lick one nipple or something. The dude's father, probably in 50s, has one of the girls up on a table. She sprayed whipped cream on her crotch. She's completely naked, and he's kneeling on the floor eating her out. And this continued for minutes. Some guys were laughing. I was in shock. Total freaking shock. My buddy was at a party where they got the groom pass out drunk and got him on a plane to Kansas. This was the 70s, so no airport security. The groom came to 3 states from home with no wallet. The stripper was pregnant. Not oh she's got a little baby bump pregnant. She was flat out oh god I hope she doesn't deliver during this dance pregnant. There were a few guys that were really into it too, which is whatever. Everyone has their kinks. I was second choice for the best man, which I didn't mind. Less work for me. So I wandered over to the actual best man, who I was friends with, and struck up a conversation. Me. Hey, this beer is great, and you did a great job with the food and liquor too. Him. Thanks man. Me. Sue. Did you notice the stripper is like 11 months pregnant? Him. Shut up. Turns out that he was trying to cut some expenses and found a friend that knew a friend that knew a friend that knew of this girl that stripped really cheap. After she was done dancing, including the one-on-one dance with the groom, she started propositioning guys. Her and some of the guys would disappear randomly. I don't know exactly what happened and I never asked because I really didn't want to know. He brought the pitching machine to the wedding. At the bachelor party we had a stripper nicknamed the pitching machine that would shoot ping pong balls out of her hoo-ha. The best man really hit it off with her, unbeknownst to everyone else at the time. The day of the wedding he showed up with the pitching machine. I watched my boss, covered in lube, being ridden around the club like a horse by a stripper with a belt around his neck acting as the reins. Safe to say our office dynamic has altered somewhat. I went to a bachelor party not more than a month ago. Same story minus lube. Before that though, they beat his butt with a belt. The more dollars you're through, the harder they hit. I spent a lot of dollars and it was glorious. I'd say my best friend's husband's bachelor party. We went to Vegas and got home from the club around 4 AM. We rode the elevator up with a H. Groom went to bed and 6 of the groomsmen took turns banging the H. I went to bed in another room and didn't participate in the shenanigans. Woke up at 8 AM to use condoms everywhere and a video of them all taking turns. Another groomsman walked in at 9 AM saying he won $800 on craps and needed to sleep because he'd done a ton of coke earlier and should probably get some sleep. One of the GFS of the groomsmen found out and told the others' wives. Wedding had great cake though. That guy with the coke and craps winnings. You should stay with him next time. This was my brother's bachelor party. There was a group of about 16 of us who got a private room in a local, crappy, strip club. A guy who I'll call Ed showed up, but was not invited. He was a childhood friend of my brother, but as an adult Ed had some issues, like 5 kids from 4 different mothers, and general poor decision making. Anyway, within the first hour, 2 strippers start giving us a show. They are seemingly getting really into it and start 69ing each other vigorously. Ed proceeds to kneel behind the woman on top in the 69 and licks her butt. She screams to the giant bouncer they had stationed in the private room with us, "Jimmy, this guy just licked my butthole." Jimmy responds, "Hey, no butthole licking," and violently drags him out. Finn. Similar story from a few months ago. Buddy is dating a cam girl and she goes wild at strip clubs. Anyway, she licked a stripper's butthole and a bouncer appears out of thin air to say, "Mom, please don't lick the performer's butthole." Then he melted away back into the shadows. Friend's bachelorette party heads to a grotty strip club, where a particularly sweaty and greased up male stripper takes a drink from the hands of one of the party, puts it on the stage and proceeds to do push-ups, dipping his dong into the drink. He'd also just put shaving cream all over himself for some reason. So there's big blobs of that and a film of grease all floating in this girl's rum and coke that this bloke has been dipping his knob in and out of. She takes it and downs it in one and licks around the inside of the glass. Nearly threw up. I'm guessing that was whipped cream. Lol. Still nauseating. The best man got pee drunk at breakfast and ate an entire banana without peeling it, and I've questioned if there is a god ever since. This is the worst one. At a bachelorette party where the stripper dipped his dong in chocolate and went around to each woman expecting someone to give it a taste, everyone refused. I was in Vegas for a bachelor party about a month ago. We pulled up to a card table on Saturday night and found another group of guys who were there for a bachelor party, so we got to talking. We asked which one of them was the bachelor and they kinda laughed then said, "Well, he got arrested earlier today." Apparently, he got arrested for having some fun powder at a day party and tried to fight security. They said they couldn't see him until Monday after he saw a judge, so they planned to continue with the party until they could see him. Ultimately, the dealer was this Russian woman with a thick butt accent was listening and said, "Wait, he got arrested for C? I thought this was Vegas." That's bulls. I don't know what ended up happening with him, but that's sucks. Dang, that blows. This was the aftermath of my boss' best friend's bachelor party. They decided he'd sleep at our house. I'm a nanny and lived with him and his kids, so that he wouldn't see his future wife before the wedding, which was the next day, the night of the bachelor party. They informed me that groom's butthole frat bro Bill is sleeping in the house too. Whatever, it's not my house, so not my rules. Anyway, I hear them being loud as frick when they got home and go upstairs to tell them to shut up because there are 3 kids sleeping and it's 3 AM. Bill and groom won't stop bitching at each other. My boss tells me it's been like this all night, and when I ask why, he explains that Bill bought the groom a back page and had her show up to the party because he thought groom deserved it. The groom freaked out, told him off, and it completely ruined the night. We managed to get them to shut up. Groom goes to sleep in the guest room, Bill on the downstairs couch, and I go back to bed. Half hour later someone opens my bedroom door, which I leave unlocked if the kids need something in the night. It's Bill and his H. When I ask him what the frick he thinks he's doing, he says he didn't realize that it was my room and then something like I'm not going to waste my $700, and I tell him to get the frick out. I was so creeped out I locked my room and went and slept upstairs in one of the kids' rooms. When I left a wedding reception to go to another event, I asked my friends to watch out for my younger brother. My friends were drunk and they dared my brother to go knock on some limo's window that drove by. He did. Then he ran away. Then a bunch of girls opened the door and told him to come back. So he did. Then the limo drove off with my brother in it. It was a bachelorette party. My friends freaked out because they were supposed to watch my brother and he just hopped in some stranger's car that drove away. The girls in the car got my brother to eat a lifesaver off the bachelorette's nipple. Then they showed him a picture of the huge guy she was marrying the next day. He was scared for a week some guy was going to find him and beat him up. I couldn't stop laughing at my friends freaked out because they were supposed to watch my brother and he just hopped in some stranger's car that drove away. My friend died on his bachelor weekend. He fell out the cab at the end of the night and hit his head on the sidewalk. Cops put him in a drunk cell overnight. Turned out he had fractured his skull. They let him out in the morning, but he went into a coma and died a week later. Wedding was supposed to be 3 weeks later. We ended up having his funeral then. I am completely broken up by it still. SAR. Please check for battle signs, CSF, raccoon eyes or deformities on your friends after they hit their heads. Each of these are clear signs, sometimes not immediately visible, of skull fracture, and skull fractures will almost always be fatal eventually. Source: EMS. We see some crap. Have strippers come over. They are not strippers but escorts. Married dude fricks escort as the other girl is getting slapped by ping pong paddles in the butt upstairs in a good fight. Next day I have to sit in car and drive home with guilt-stricken married guy. I'd like to know what % of people who cheat on bachelor night who don't cheat during the marriage. I got invited to a bachelor party that took place in the clubhouse of my friend's apartment complex. Plan was to have drinks and strippers early and then hit the clubs later. The girls show up and introduce themselves with their best fake stripper names. They were escorted by their manager Terry, who no joke looked like Dave Chappelle's impersonation of Rick James. Immediately weird crap starts happening, like one girl sticking a lollipop up her cooz and then sticking it in people's mouths. Anyway, within the first 5 minutes we figured out we had hired prostitutes instead of strippers. The whole time Terry is walking around and encouraging us to have a good time with one specific rule. Don't CM on the B. Crap is getting intense and the girls are starting to just full on start blowing dudes when we heard a girl scream and then go running to Terry. One of our friends who was, less experienced with girls had just basted this girl's face with CM without warning. She looked like she'd been dipped in it. It was everywhere. Just like that. The music stops. Lights go up and Terry exclaims, "Party's over cuz one of y'all went and came on peaches." To this day we still use that phrase every time we get together and it's a point of pride to see who can work it into conversation first. My buddy's bachelor party was set to be pretty tame. No strip clubs or casinos or anything like that. He just wanted to get these massive burgers from the local burger joint walking distance from his condo and play Mario Kart 64. So after we had all stuffed our faces from these ridiculous Mond burgers, we sat down, divvied up the teams, and each person would drain 1 beer per lap, then exchange controllers. Every single person ended up puking immediately. Once the toilet, sink, and kitchen sink were full, people were throwing up all over the place, running around looking for the least damaging spot to spew. It was obscene. I've been playing Mario Kart wrong all these years. At my bachelor party, I walked into a bar at the head of about 20 people and ordered some drinks. As I was waiting, I noticed a guy antagonizing a table full of people who were trying to ignore him. A bouncer tried to get him to leave and he lifted his shirt, revealing a holster. Someone, maybe me, yelled gun and people started tackling the guy and punching the crap out of him. He was able to get his weapon out and fire. Only his weapon was a 20-ounce can of bad deterrent pepper spray. He emptied the can into the air and everyone in the room started gasping and crying and screaming. Police rolled up just as this guy was being dragged to his feet, and throngs of screaming, crying people are pouring out of the bar. Just at this time, my dad and father-in-law arrived to see how the party was going. The first thing they saw, after the utter mayhem, was my younger brother choking out the words, "We didn't do it, Dad." I was dating for my friend's bachelor party. I jammed 4 drunk Marines into a 2013 Yaris, and we hit the road. Eventually we ended up at a seedy strip club. Things are going okay. Drinks were surprisingly affordable, and we were the only people in the joint. Eventually a different dancer stumbles through the door and is aggressively trying to get someone to buy a dance from her. Nobody is interested as she was. She was definitely not on the A squad. She talks my buddy and his younger brother into seeing a trick and proceeds to without warning squirt a bottle of water up her tea, and then spray it on them. Not cheating related, but a friend of mine went batshit Bridezilla during her Huns at Bangkok. Most of us were from Malaysia and one of the girls flew in specifically from Melbourne just for that weekend to celebrate her hens. That Melbourne girl too had everything planned out for the trip because whenever we asked Bridezilla what she'd like to do for her hens, she'd go all, up to you guys, but I wanna do some shopping, nails and massage. So itinerary was, day 1 shopping, day 2 nails and day 3 massage before we set off. Bridezilla went full blown crazy, screaming at the top of her lungs and complaining about how this is her hens, and how we're just doing whatever that we want instead of whatever she wants. Made fun of some transgender who did her hair, mimicking her actions and tone of voice in front of her, transgender, while we're all feeling utterly embarrassed for her actions. Threatened to fly back to Malaysia every single night. When all heck broke loose, we finally sat her down and talked to her. This was the last night before we fly off the next day. Told her about her actions and she still thinks we're all wrong. How we're ruining her hens, etc. One thing's for sure, when we asked her if she really was intending to fly back to Malaysia, she said no and that there are no flights back anyway. I was fuming inside. True enough, once we're back, I hardly met up with her, only attended her wedding because I have reserved way in advance and I'm not the kind of person who breaks my promise. I don't need a friend like that. So glad this got asked. I was at my buddy's bachelor party in Montreal. His thing was relatively tame. However, as we're walking from the strip club to the bar, we end up behind a bunch of college girls who came up from the States to drink. They're all dressed in their club gear and completely hammered. I see one particularly wobbly young woman wearing incredibly high heels. She takes a misstep and rolls her freaking ankle so bad her shin touches the sidewalk. She straight up broke her leg but was so drunk she kept on trucking. I run up to one of the more sober looking members of her group and I'm like, your friend just broke her leg. Unfortunately she and her friends think I'm trying to pick them up. I'm like, I'm married and 10 years older than you, but you should probably take care of your friend. Meanwhile the injured woman's leg is already swelling up. Also, at my bachelor party, the strip club we went to ended up being the venue for the Micro Wrestling Federation, so instead of boobies I got little person wrestling. My friends also got a store clerk to detain me for shoplifting as a prank. Excuse me, your friend's leg is broke. I have a boyfriend. My friend's bachelor party in Chicago, we held it in my friend's place of business, a lounge. After hours, they hired 2 strippers which were actually prostitutes. They come in with a huge dude packing a big butt gun in his belt. He sits down and smokes blunts the entire time. The girls literally went around the room giving everyone BJs, like not in private, but just going in a circle. My one buddy decided he's going to eat the stripper's butt while she's giving head. This is like 5 minutes into the party. Everyone is sober. I'm in shock. My turn comes around and I want nothing to do with it. The stripper says I can take her in back and made love instead if I want. I respectfully decline. Eventually she gets to the groom and he doesn't really seem into it either. Peer pressure gets to him and he reluctantly gets a BJ in the bathroom. All my friends make him open the door so they can watch a stripper sit on a toilet and give him head while they talk to him the whole time. At this point I'm chit-chatting the security guy on the couch. They end the show by sticking Roman candles in their butt and pee, and put on a fireworks show. Imagine 2 naked women on their back with Roman candles in each hole, sitting across from each other shooting fireworks at their naked bodies. Yeah. Then they go down on each other and my booty munching friend goes back for round 2. That's when I decided I'd had enough and pack it in. You can't make this crap up. We had an ongoing rule through the weekend that if you were holding a pint, and someone managed to get a nominated coin into it, you had to down it immediately. It was, I think, a Brazilian real, whatever it was. It was a big old coin, significant diameter and a good, sturdy thickness. Anyway, one of the chaps ended up swallowing the coin along with the beer. I'll never forget the look of realization on his face, and I can imagine the other look on his face a couple of days later. Back in the 80s, my friend's brother's bachelor party was the first I'd ever been to, and me and my friends were all about 19. It was held in a room over a sketchy volunteer firehouse. The skanky bartender doubled as the evening's entertainment, and at one point stripped naked, laid the bride's father on the floor, sat on his face, and then proceeded to blow the groom. It was far from anything erotic or cool, just sad and nasty, and not the good nasty, either. My friends and I were like, this can't be good, and sorta noped out of there at that point, so I can't tell you what happened next, but I doubt anything good happened. Threesome with his bride-to-be's father. Ha. Had a friend hit $250k on a $5 slot machine at a Shreveport casino on his bachelor party 2 weeks before the ceremony. With his newfound wealth, he decided to ask his fiancée to sign a prenup. She refused. She had referred to it as our money from the first moment she heard the good news. And so, he walked away. Everyone hated him for it. He was practically excommunicated from all our social circles. 10 years later and she's filed bankruptcy twice. In hindsight, he made the right decision. Wow, this one is about a smart decision, not a bad one. Girl I went to high school with didn't want her husband to have some random stripper at his party that will probably give him some disease, so instead she got her little sister, 20 at the time, to dance at the party instead. Not because she could trust her sister to not screw her husband, but because she knew her sister didn't have any diseases. Yep, little sister stripped, then gave him a BJ, then got on top and fricked him, in front of all the other guys. We just watched in silence. It wasn't erotic, but more of a curiosity. This is the goodest flyboy. He will bring you 10 years of happiness in exchange for a like on this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.